ladies and gentlemen. This is Cynthia the Audio Belle, and I am here with Ray Kimber of Kimber Cables. How are you doing, Ray?
I'm fine, thank you, Cynthia. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So, I wanted to interview you because your company is so interesting to me. You have really quality cables. I have the Hero series, and I love them. And they sound great. And I was wondering, what got you into cables in the first place?
Well, thank you. It started, I've been in audio my entire life, but what really started the cables were, we were doing large discotheques in the mid-70s, and we're having a lot of problem with noise being in the systems. And so I wanted to develop a cable that would self-shield, and the counter-rotating braids did that. Now, of course, when you braid a cable, lower series induction, which makes it sound higher fidelity, and so that put us on the path of manufacturing, and then refinements over 40 years have given us more insight into conductors and dielectrics and geometry and connectors especially.
The company itself, as far as the factory, how large is it?
So we have 40 employees, around 60,000 square feet of mischief.
Of mischief?
Yes.
It sounds like a lot of mischief, but a lot of fun too.
Yes, it is that.
So I'm guessing you have the factory where you're making the cables, and you have testing equipment in rooms, and then you have listening rooms where you can actually...
Sure, yes, and it's kind of all on top of each other, and so things get moved around and shifted, and
yeah.
It's a crazy place. It's a fun place to work.
It sounds like fun. It sounds like a fun energy place to work.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you a more personal question. Did inventing this get you into high-end audio as far as you became an audiophile, or were you an audiophile first?
An audiophile first.
So tell me about that.
Oh my gosh. I've always had electronics. My father was in electronics, so it was always around me. And I was always the kid who saved his money and spent it on a turntable or on a new cartridge, or built my own speakers in junior high school. And so I've always been a little crazy with that.
So you were building your own speakers, and you've been into this for a very long time. Did listening to a specific piece of music touch you in a certain way that sent you on that path when you listened to some of the speakers you built?
It was so much. My parents loved music, and so we always had classical music, and then of course there was always pop on the AM radio because there was no FM in the city where I was at. We had a little AM radio station of really dubious quality, but we had neighbors who had a little better systems, and I used to just sit in front of these transfixed. So it was, my musical tastes are very diverse. I tend to really enjoy really heroic music, and so I want good songwriting, good recording, good. I like it to be good. I was always a little disappointed in some recordings, and so I thought I would try a different idea with microphones, and it works. And so we've made several recordings. We have several SACDs on the market, and have pressed a record, which won Record of the Month from Stereophile last year.
Wow.
And for our first try. And we were just listening to a test pressing 10 minutes ago, and we've just made the decision that this is okay, so it'll be pressed, and this will be, the title is Russian Masterpieces, and it's Rachmaninoff and Prokofiev, the piano-cello concertos.
I like Rachmaninoff.
Because I don't have to conform to anyone else's ideas, we We're recording them in 4 times direct stream digital.
Wow.
And no compression, no limiting, no filtering, no mixing. And so I go for absolute fidelity.
Nice. So how could one get a copy of one of these records?
Well, it'll be Preston, so it'll be vinyl, and so you can get it. And we're also probably going to start releasing some of them on reel-to-reel tapes.
Oh wow!
So it'll be first generation master, and we're really looking at that.
So circling back to your cables, I was wondering, because they're such high quality cables and they're so great, what makes them so great, and what would make someone buy one over an AudioQuest or another cable, for instance?
Well, you just mentioned a brand where I have very good respect for their engineering and their business practices and their people. So that certainly could be a brand that would be considered. We think we do a really good job, and maybe a better job, I don't know. We do virtually all of the manufacture in Ogden. It doesn't come from overseas. And we think that we understand what we're doing. So
I really like that you make your cables here in the United States. To me, that itself is amazing that you do that. So what makes them different from other cables?
I mean, attention to every detail, the metal, the dielectric, how the insulation is put on or dielectric is put on, whether it's sleeve extrusion or pressure extrusion. And
what is that?
Well, so pressure extrusion is where the plastic is pressurized onto the conductors, and sleeve extrusion is where it goes through an extruder head and it comes out as kind of a funnel, and then as the conductor goes through it, it pulls it down onto it. And and then soldering. So we use special solders, and we use soldering guns that inject a small amount of nitrogen into the soldering field so that it's a cleaner joint and the crystalline structure is better. And then even the connectors we use, like the WBT connectors, the company is absolutely crazy, just like we are. They have just developed and put in place a plasma coating for gold. That it's actually revolutionary. It's the only one that we know of that anyone has in the world. And when you plate normally gold on something, it's a galvanic process where you use an electrolyte and a bath and an anode and a cathode and DC voltage. But the gold atoms just rush over and stick to the other part. But it's kind of like being mobbed. It's in incoherent chaos of a coating. And this is very orderly. This lines them up.
Yeah. So how does that sound? What is the difference in sound when you?
Well, I think that maybe a good explanation is that in this case the result follows the form, because it sounds more measured, more accurate, more fidelity, less chaotic sometimes.
More on point?
Yes, exactly. More precise. And at the same time retaining the music.
Wow. So is there a lot involved in testing a cable in the factory?
Yes, and testing cables, the test equipment oftentimes will only tell us if we've done something wrong.
Right.
And then because we haven't figured out how to correlate some things that we know we can hear with measurements. So the subjective versus objective.
Yeah, measurements are a tricky business.
Yes, but in some cases, because we are listening to music that we have recorded, it means we have the original masters. And so we can, for instance, play it out and re-record it into the digital audio workstation, and then make a change in the cables or something, and then do it again. And now we have before and after, and we can invert one of them and listen to only the difference.
So is it tough to tell sometimes?
Oh yes. Sometimes it's just kind of like an emotional impression of what you're listening to. You can't really articulate it. And then in that case, we will listen to something for like days on end, and we get a stronger and stronger certainty that, okay, this one is better than this one.
I can imagine that if they're both really close or really good cables, it would be, you'd have to listen very carefully to tell.
And sometimes it's not listening carefully. For instance, sometimes I will just, when I come in a couple of hours early, I will just listen to the same piece of music on the same cables for several days in a row and not really pay particular attention, and then switch and then do it, and then be like, I like the first one better than the second one. And because it's that I don't know how it connects with your soul or something, it almost goes beyond hearing.
It does.
But then, of course, we certainly sit and critically listen too sometimes.
So sometimes not listening, you pick up things that you wouldn't pick up when you're attentively listening.
Yeah, it's like an emotional impression.
That's a good way to describe it. So have you found ways in your cables, I guess maybe scientifically or mechanically, that make it sound more holographic than others?
Oh, yes. Low series induction, very high surface conductivity, very good dielectrics. And then, for instance, one of the things that we do, all cables that are properly manufactured have to be tested for defects in the insulation, like little pinhole flaws or something like that. And one of the traditional ways to do it is to run the wire through a water bath that has a very high voltage on it to see if it will detect it. But that leaves an electret charge on the cable, and sometimes it takes hundreds or thousands of hours for that to work out. But we use a high frequency dielectric tester with a falling field, and so as the cable goes through it, it ramps it up and actually does almost like a corona, which will detect a pinhole in the cable, and then as it comes out of the machine, it reduces the field back to null. So it's like this. It's not just all DC.
Wow.
So it leaves less of a charge on the cable, absolutely, than typical.
I can imagine that would be a lot easier than the water bath. So what would be your entry level for, let's say we have a young audiophile looking into buying a Kimber cable?
Yeah, so we would have interconnects in 1 meter down around $100. So between $100 and $10,000, there's a lot of range. But the same kind of philosophy of that it must be a good bargain, that it must make music, it shouldn't make mistakes. When we're designing, we want to have sins of omission rather than sins of commission.
Yes.
In other words, we don't want the cable to do something extra. Maybe the cable won't do everything, but we don't want it to be its own musical instrument. We want it to disappear.
Just less variables.
Yes.
So in the entry-level cable, what is the differentiating factors between the entry-level cables and then on up?
So the connectors make a big difference in the price, obviously, and we have inexpensive RCAs that are made for us. and we try and be sensible about how they're made and what they're made of, so that we can get all of the focus on just the performance and not necessarily the looks, although they're not completely ugly. And then as they come up in quality into the WBT line, now we're talking about multi-layer platings and precision machining and ultra pure metals like pure silver conductors. And
Do they take a long time to make?
oh yeah, they're all hand assembled.
Wow.
So we've got good craftsmen.
So I did have one more question. I was wondering about the connectors that you mentioned, the WBT, and I
Yes.
noticed mine say WBT as well. Are all of your connectors WBT?
No, so WBT is a separate company. We happen to be the distributor / general agent for America.
Mm-hmm.
They're made in Germany. Wolfgang B. Turner is here if you want to interview him also. His background is metallurgy from the car industry, but he's a very good, well, even great, heroic engineer, and very careful and very meticulous, and tends to do things on the crazy level of performance.
Would you say it would be more complicated making a cable or making a connector?
Yes. I mean, it's.
I'm guessing a lot goes into both.
Yes.
But probably the cable takes more time, right?
To actually manufacture it?
To manufacture, test it.
No, I don't think I could say on that. I think that sometimes you'll have a design and everything falls into place and it becomes pretty straightforward, and other times you have mysteries that you have to overcome, and it takes forever to work through those little mysteries.
And then troubleshooting and finding out what's causing
with
things.
connectors, and it could be a design choice, it could be a machine manufacturing issue, it could be temperature or speed or drawing fluids. I mean, there's so many things.
So it must be pretty hard to isolate when you're trying to test it and work out the kinks.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
I mean, that sounds right up my alley. So I'm a server engineer.
You're a what engineer?
I'm a server engineer.
Okay.
And so I have to troubleshoot issues, with servers all day. And so I can kind of relate to having to isolate.
And yeah, with the server, sometimes you don't know if it's a hardware issue or a software issue or firmware issue, and then there's always those little crazy things where it appears to be one, and then after it's been on for a while and something gets a little hot, and then that one thing in the chip tends to misstep one time, and now you don't know where you're at again.
Exactly. I mean, especially if you have multiple problems, then you have to isolate them and try to do it one at a time, but
Sure.
that can be difficult. So
Yeah.
it's a process.
Right.
Anything you're troubleshooting, I think. So I would like to listen to that recording you were talking about. So I think that this is a good stopping place, and I really thank you for doing this interview with me.
Thank you.
And it was a lot of fun getting to talk to you and hear your background and story, as well as just go nerdy with cables, because I found out I had more questions than I ever thought I did.
Thanks. So let's go listen to some music.
All right, sounds good. This is Cynthia, the Audiophile, signing out.